Welcome to Thrift Store Chats with your host Joe, episode 6. And on today's show, we got Evan from the Retreasures Thrift Boutique. On Thrift Store Chats today, we got Evan from Retreasures Thrift Boutique. How's it going today?
Good. Evan? Thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, you're welcome, man. Hey, why don't you tell the listeners how you got started getting into the reselling business?
Sure. So I have spent a lot of time working in corporate positions, and I learned very early on about myself that I don't do well with authority, reporting to a boss. So luckily I have my mom's raised me with a really strong work ethic, and I found out that she has an entrepreneurial mindset. So I started following what she was doing. She left the corporate world, started her own business at home, and so I decided that I needed to do the same thing, but I didn't want to go into competition with her. So I started looking around, and I tried all the mid-level marketing things and all of that. Wasn't really clicking with any of them. And then a friend of mine started talking about their eBay store, and I was like, I've bought from eBay, so I started researching it. And I guess I've been doing I've done eBay for about 2 years now, still working full-time, and am glad to say that now, effective this year, within the next few months, I probably shouldn't say this out loud yet, but I intend to be able to quit my job and do this full-time 100%. So
that's pretty good, man. Are you excited about trying to work full-time at eBay?
Well, I'll probably expand past eBay. eBay lately has made a lot of changes that have made it a little bit more difficult for sellers to, I don't know, in my opinion, be as successful as they could be. So I'm looking at a number of different options, which is probably, I'd say having different options would probably be what is putting me in a situation where I can do it full-time, work from home full-time. Yeah. But, yeah, I'm very, very excited about it. I've already made a lot of steps in my life to make it more convenient, make it more possible. So it's just a matter of having the last few puzzle pieces fall into place. What's your strategy when you sell on eBay? Do you like to do buy it nows? Do you like to do auctions? I've tried a little bit of everything because I think that, again, everybody has that one or a couple of things that work really, really well for them, and then certain things that they may not be as good at. I have tried going into thrift stores, finding items, and then turning them around on eBay or whatnot. I did okay. My niche item when I was doing that was, oddly enough, coffee mugs. I could walk into a Goodwill, find a couple of coffee mugs for 25, 30, 45 cents, and then turn them around and sell them for anywhere between, $15 and $30. But coffee mugs are also very unreliable because they break easily, and I've had a lot of situations where I've had to refund and whatnot. So I decided to step away from rethrifting and go more so. Right now, my primary inventory process would be that I go to local auctions, whether it be a storage auction or an estate sale or something like that, preferably large lots of items, and you get 100 items for a really reasonable price. And then in that, you go through the items and you find an area to resell. And again, I was talking just a minute ago about having multiple venues to get stuff out. I do eBay, but I'm at a point now where eBay is kind of restricted to just rare items for me. So, for example, one of the units I had a lot of Dale Earnhardt and Elvis. Where I'm at, sure, I could find a market, but I would probably sell the items for $2 or $3, whereas I could go onto eBay and get $15, $20, $25 for it. So that's what I use eBay for. I also do Facebook, Craigslist, and right now I'm doing yard sales where once a month I'll do a huge yard sale, and I'll just have everything in my inventory out in my front yard, and I've done really, really, really well with that. I'm intent on, as soon as I can get out of the corporate world, moving into like flea markets and things like that, and then eventually long-term would be to have a commercial location.
What's the difference between selling on Craigslist compared to selling on Facebook? Is there a difference, or what would you say?
Yes, the experience, the general experience is going to be relatively the same because you don't have to worry about the politics of eBay. You don't have to worry about fees. You don't have to worry about any of that. So that's the one thing I really enjoy about it is I am my own boss. I get to decide when I'm going to meet people, how I'm going to deliver the item. And in my world, I don't like to, because I drive a truck and it's not good on gas, so I don't want to drive all over the city trying to deliver items. So the one thing I do really like about Craigslist and Facebook is you set the location. And typically I make buyers come to me because one of my, I guess, the things I don't like is that because it's Facebook and they haven't had to prepay or anything, they may not show up, or if they show up, then I've had people, for example, carry less cash than what we've initially agreed on, or things like that. So there are a couple of disadvantages, but overall, I actually really like it a lot more than having to pay out someone a fee every time I sell an item. So on Facebook, I just joined a large number of local groups, specifically buy, sell, trade, or free groups, and I'll post a couple of items at a time. I typically the one thing you have to be careful of on Facebook is just making sure you pay attention to the rules of the groups. But once you get in there and they realize you're a legitimate seller, they usually will back off of any major rules they have. So then I typically have a couple of items a week that I'm consistently posting. Each of those I typically somehow reference my own personal website so that they can go and look at my whole inventory versus just the one or two items. And I've done really, really well building up traffic on that. I've had my own local Facebook page Facebook page for my shop for probably under a year, and I got really, really aggressive with Facebook sales here in the last probably 4 months, and I've gone from having 120 members to, I'm looking right now, 430 members in less than 2 months. It's really, really escalated.
Wow, that's pretty good. What do you do with people when they, how does it work if you agree on the item that's maybe $50 and they bring less money? What do you do?
So far, I've only had a couple of people where they've only been short maybe $1 or $2. They're like, oh, I forgot I had to pay for something or whatever. In that situation, I'll typically, I have to watch my face because I typically don't, you know exactly what I'm thinking with how I look. So I typically give them one of those looks. But in all honesty, if I can convince a customer to be a loyal subscriber on Facebook, to once I launch my commercial location, for them to come in, once a month or once a week to tell other people about it, I'm fine taking a $1 or $2 difference. If it became a habit or if it was just drastically different, then it would be a situation where I would, as politely as I can in the moment, just say, thanks so much, but this is not what we agreed upon. I'm going to have to keep the item for myself. I have had a lot. The community that I live in is, I'm learning through my yard sales, is very, very big on negotiating, which is great, except there's negotiating and then begging for an item or asking for it for free. And I've got a lot of people who, I had an item listed for, I want to say it was $80 on eBay. In my yard sale, I was asking $15 for it because I wanted to move it quickly. And a gentleman walked up and he said, hey, can I have this for $2? And I was like, absolutely not. So then he went into desperate mode and he was grabbing other items. He's like, now can I get all of this for $15? And I said, no, you can't. It's the negotiating concept. I've created a motto that, yes, I negotiate, yes, I barter, no, you can't have it for free.
What I know you say you do storage auctions. I've never done storage auctions. I only know what I see on TV, Storage Wars. That's what I know about storage auctions. What's it like from real life TV? And do prices really go up to the thousands to buy storage auctions, or what's going on?
Yeah, honestly, I got into it based on the TV show. Well, that was my introduction to it. I was like, well, if this is a legitimate industry, let's see what it's about. And I'll encourage anybody listening, don't go with the expectation that it's going to be like the TV show in any sense of any aspect of it. It's not that catty. It's not. There's not all the drama. I've been in a couple of situations where it's gotten not heated, but I've been in a situation, for example, where there was another bidder, who was just being, for lack of a better term, childish about how the auction was going. It's very simple. When you walk up to a unit, you don't touch it, you don't step inside. They say it before we start the auction. And this particular individual, whom I happen to know has been in this for years, kept touching stuff. I actually watched him in one of the units move a mattress out of the way so he could see what was behind it. And that's just not how I'm very much about. If you're going to be in an industry, respect the industry and be professional. Don't bend the rules or play. And especially when you've got other people involved, like the rest of the bidders that were there. So he moved the mattress, and so finally we get to this one unit, and it was the only unit he didn't touch because the manager had finally called him out on it. And he ended up wanting the unit, and I did get at a point where I was like, I'm getting this unit. I don't care what it takes, because it was a really, really good unit. And so he and I did get into a little bit of a back and forth. But I've never been in a situation where there's name-calling or it gets catty or anything like that. In fact, I've seen more people where, because it's, I don't want to say like family-like, but it is very much, we give each other advice. We talk about how we sell stuff, and where, for example, I've had guys come up and say, oh, you got that item, I know somebody who wants it, and literally have tried to make sales for me while we're standing at the unit. It's not like you see on the TV show. The reason I love doing it is because, yes, the prices are very, very good. I've heard people recently complaining that the units are going for higher than they used to. The highest I've seen is about $3,000, but sitting in the unit were 2 4-wheeler ATVs and a full, like, it was like somebody emptied their entire house into the unit. It wasn't like it was, the $3,000 was well worth it, right?
Yeah.
But you would be surprised. I actually was, I had a day where I was really, really sick, and I had been in bed for like 5 days with a sinus infection, and I was like, I've got to get out of the house. So I went to an auction, and there were 18 units that day. 10 of the 18 units went for less than $15. Nice. And these units were full, and I was so upset because I was like on medication. I wasn't paying attention because my eyes were half closed the whole time. I was like, why did I not bid on any of these units? But so it's the prices really, really do vary.
So were those online, or you actually had to go there?
Those have all been live auctions. I've not done any. I've watched the online auctions, but I've not actually tried to bid on any, and I've not, obviously, since I haven't bid on any, I haven't won any. I have struggled with the online auctions only because I do feel like those prices get out of hand. There are a couple of websites that I look at that I'll see online auctions, and I'll watch them up until, the day that they end or whatnot. But 9 out of 10 times you see an auction or a unit that you look at it and you're like, oh, that's a $300 unit, and it goes for $1,000. It's just really, really crazy how high it gets. So good for the website, good for the people on the receiving end, but for someone like me, when I walk up to a unit, I look at it and I go, okay, what can I see of value right now? And if I can see $500, okay, great, that's my limit, that's my budget. Maybe $550, because you're buying the content plus the mystery, right?
Yep.
So
what else could be in there, what you don't see?
Exactly. So I typically will say, okay, if I see $500 in the unit, let's say $600 is my cap, because if the stuff is nice enough that you can see to have $500 worth of stuff there, then great, there's probably something in one of those boxes to make up the difference. The goal is typically that you want to try and at least double your money in the auctions. So a lot of people, listening to some of the other speakers that you've had on the show, they talk about being able to quadruple their money. When you're in thrift or when you walk into a thrift store and you find an item, you can do that because you know exactly what you're getting. When you go to a yard sale, you can pick up an item and go, oh, it's $1, great, I can make $50 on this. You don't always have that with storage auctions, but I will say this as well. With that risk, you might only double your money. You may actually fall short. I've had 2 units recently where I only spent $20, $25 on them, but I at the end of the day, I wasn't making a penny. It was just all crap. Then I've had units where I've spent $300 on the unit, and by the time I'm done moving my inventory, I'll have generated almost $3,000 to $5,000. So, yeah, you may not always know or may not always reach that double or triple or quadruple your money in a storage auction because some of it is mystery, but when you hit really, really well.
So what do you do after you have to go in there and you have to clean everything out? So if you went in there, those auctions that they didn't have anything that was really good, you just have to throw it away right there, or do you have to take it away and throw it away somewhere else?
Yeah, so it varies property by property. So each storage facility is going to have its own rules, unless it's a chain like U-Haul or something like that, and then the rules are pretty consistent overall. If you plan on going to a storage unit, and again, you can get units for relatively cheap. I typically would encourage anybody who's wanting to test it out, before you even consider bidding, just go watch a couple of them. Some things that you'll want to know before you get involved in one is there any sort of deposit? Because, again, if you walk in with $500 cash and there's a $100 hold or deposit on the unit when you get it, that means you can only bid $400 of the $500 you have in cash in hand, right? Mm. So knowing those kinds of things before the auction starts is a really big deal. I ask every time before, even if I've been to the property before, because a lot of them change their policy month over month, because maybe last month they sold a unit and somebody left a bunch of stuff in it. So I typically will just say, hey, how many units do you have and what's the deposit and then how long do I have to move stuff? Most will say 24 to 48 hours. Some of the smaller mom and pops might give you, 3 days to a week. And then again, if you're buying more than one unit, typically there's an opportunity to negotiate there. I've also had depending on the county, there might be local laws. Like, for example, in one of the counties where I live, they are not allowed to sell you used mattresses, liquor in the bottle, and there was something else. So when they open the unit, they'll say something along the lines of, you're bidding on everything in the unit except if you find alcohol or used mattresses. You're welcome to leave those behind or take them with you. We prefer that you take them with you and consider them a gift. So it's very political in how they say it, but ultimately 9 out of 10 units that you go to, you're going to have to take everything with you unless they give you some sort of disclaimer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Dang. What's the best thing you found in your how many storage units have you bought, and what's the best thing you found so far?
Yeah, I got my first unit. I just started that in January of this year. I think I've gotten 12 or 15 at this point. The best 2 units have actually been the most expensive ones that I've got. The only downside is that the stuff I'm getting out of those units, it's not the kind of inventory that's going to turn around in 24 hours. You've got to go find the buyer for it. The first was I spent, I think, $320 on the unit. I was bidding on it mainly because there were several pieces of furniture in the unit that were really, really old. I don't know that I'd call them antique, but they were very vintage, and I thought they looked really, really cool. And I try to look for things that I know, especially when you're looking at stuff and you're pricing it. If they open the door and you see a bunch of boxes, I go, okay, so each box might contain $5. So typically cardboard boxes or whatnot, I'll do $5. Plastic totes and things like that, I typically calculate at $10 because you can't even go to Walmart and get a plastic tote now for less than $7 or $8.
Yep.
So even the tote itself, just considering, and I will say this, if you're in the storage auction business, you either need to have a garage or a storage unit of your own. And I don't like cardboard in my storage unit. It molds, it attracts bugs, it breaks very, very easily. I've had a lot of boxes where I pick them up and the bottoms just come out. So I tend to look for lots of bins anyway because I keep those. But this $320 unit I was bidding on for the furniture. The very first piece of furniture I grab and pull out just collapsed. It just broke into pieces. And I was like, oh, crap. If this is what I've got going for me, then I'm screwed. But it was after I got past the furniture, I opened the first box, and it was literally, 20 pounds of Elvis stuff, newspapers and magnets and all of the merchandise. Not merchandise you would find at, like, Walmart today. I'm talking merchandise from the 1960s, 1970s.
Nice.
Yeah, so I did a lot of research on it, and I'm expecting to hit about $2,500 when I'm done with just the Elvis stuff. So far, now I got that probably back in, I want to say probably mid-February. I can't believe it's already May. Wow. Probably February or March, and I've done, out of that particular unit, I've done probably about $400. So I've made my money back and then a little bit. So I've done really well with that one. Another unit I got, which was more recent, probably about a month ago, I got it. It was the one I was talking about where the guy and I were kind of going back and forth about it.
Yeah.
It was full. The thing that caught my attention were there were several African tribal masks positioned throughout the unit, and then there was this one large wooden door that was hand carved in a tribal theme. And then I don't know that everyone saw it, but I could see that there was behind this cabinet they had in there were several pieces of art. So after winning it, I think I spent about $450 on it. The unit itself, I'm still working on getting the art appraised. And again, this is the other thing that's different with thrifting. Thrifting, you typically go in, you find something, and you know it's got value. With this, there's a lot of research. There's a lot of I've got 15 pieces of art right now that I still don't know the full value on. I've got to go in and find either an appraiser or research it myself. I have done 2 of them, and I'm looking at about probably $350 on those 2 pieces. The large door that I mentioned is probably about $150. So I easily have my money back, $450. I'm estimating, again, without doing the research, if you average that each of the paintings and stuff that I got at, even just $150 each, I'm looking at probably $7,000 or $8,000.
Nice. That's pretty good returns.
Yeah. The hard part is I'm sitting on $700,000 or $800,000 of inventory because, again, I've got to research each painting. I've got to find the buyer and then get it to them. And these are large pieces. So, again, it's a lot like, and the big difference is I may not be able to post these on eBay. It's a situation where I'm going to have to find that one individual, either put it in a gallery or something. So there's a lot of investing that goes into this. So,
where are you keeping all this stuff that you're finding from all these auctions?
I have my own storage unit relatively close to my house right now. I'm looking at potentially, hopefully, having my own home, buying my own home soon, and I'll have to make sure that I have a garage or somewhere to put some sort of storage area. But yeah, right now it's in my own storage unit. So I guess if all goes to heck, then I could always just let my unit go to auction and sell it off that way.
How much is it for a storage auction?
How much is it to put your unit up for auction?
No, just to rent a storage auction.
Oh, well.
To rent a storage unit, I mean.
Yeah. Well, so it's definitely going to vary location to location. I've got 2 facilities within a mile of my house, and I started with a 10 by 30 size unit, which is 300 square feet. The one closest to my house was charging, how much was it? $143 a month. The other was charging $209. So it was very, very different, and they literally are within walking distance of each other. So shop around if you're ever looking for a unit. I actually recently upgraded to a 20 by 20, so a 400 square foot. And I'll say this: each person's going to have their own preference. The 10 by 30, when you look at it, it's really, really long. And so when you go to an auction, you're buying out units that are 10 by 10, 10 by 20, 10 by 30. You have to get that, and you only have 1 or 2 days to move stuff. So a lot of planning needs to go into how are you going to lay out your unit, because, again, if you go and you buy out a 10 by 30 and you have a 10 by 30, you're going to have to stack stuff. You're going to have to put stuff in a certain area. I got to a point, because the unit was so long, that I would get a unit, I'd process some of it, post it on Facebook, post it on Craigslist, post it on eBay, sell something, but then I had gotten another unit in between that unit and this one, so now I have to move stuff out of the way to go and get the stuff that I had already posted. Now with a square unit, 20 by 20, each corner is designated to processed or not processed, clothing versus art versus something else. So I find the square units are a little bit more beneficial for overall process.
Nice. That's pretty good. What else was I going to say? Golly, that's pretty good. You keep all your stuff in a storage unit there. Is it an air-conditioned one, or is it just regular?
This one's not, so you do have to be careful with what you're putting in there. Obviously, the other thing to look out for as you're processing your unit is to make sure that you get rid of any sort of non-storage friendly items. Like, I've gotten a couple of units where people have kept food and whatnot in there. Get rid of it. It attracts bugs and rats and whatnot. It's technically when you sign your lease on a unit, they have a list of things you shouldn't put in there anyway. But a lot of people, especially if you're moving across country or you know, out here, I'm out in Nashville, some of the units around are belong to military families because we're in between a couple of bases here. So if a single guy in the military gets deported for work, then he might throw everything he has into a unit, including his kitchen. And unfortunately, if you come across that, I've had 1 or 2 boxes that haven't smelt very well, and a couple that have had some bugs and whatnot to them. So just keep an eye out for that as you're processing, because you don't want to add that into the other inventory you're bringing in.
Another thing I want to get into is, are you still doing drop shipping?
No, I did it for a short period of time, and I will say this, I didn't stop doing it because I wasn't successful with it. It is, for somebody who can truly be dedicated to it, it can be very, very successful. I've got a couple of friends who make a ton of money doing it. I would say that you either need to be extremely good at multitasking or at least be able to focus on it consistently to a point where you're really, really good at micromanaging it. My issue was I don't do well with having just one thing on my plate. I personally believe in having 3 to 5 streams of income at all times. And unfortunately for me, the streams of income that I've chosen have been extremely time-consuming, very obviously very, very lucrative, but time-consuming, and with dropshipping, you have to pay your store a lot of attention because you are taking items from one provider and reselling them through eBay or Amazon or another provider. And if that first provider you're buying from increases their price even just a little bit, it can completely throw off your ability to be profitable. And I had that happen on a couple of occasions because I was focused on running my eBay store plus drop shipping, plus thrifting, plus this, that, and the other. So it's something that you really, really want to be dedicated to. It is a lot of fun, and I will say I never got into the massive items because, again, you also have to take into account the items that are going to be worth several $1,000s. One will eat into your eBay limits, but then also you have to worry about shipping. If you ship an entire patio set, you might have to do freight instead of just UPS, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of planning. You have to figure out, okay, what's it going to cost me to buy it from the website, whether it be Amazon or Walmart or Target, wherever you're purchasing it from. How much is it going to cost me there? How much is shipping going to be? Okay, is it regular shipping or is it freight? Where is it going? Is it international? Is it not? What if the price goes up? How quickly can I get to it? So there's a lot of small minutia that you have to pay attention to.
Can you give me like an example of one of your items that you did sell and that you say you sourced it from Walmart and you like the whole process? Can you just give me like a little breakdown of like how it did work? Because I know it can work and I know you were successful at it. So can you give me like a little breakdown of how it works? Of like an example of an actual thing you actually sold.
Yeah. So.
Like from start to finish, the whole process.
Sure. So, and it's been a while, so I'll have to think through it as I go through it. The first thing to do is just like when you're thrifting, do a little bit of research, figure out what sells well. Now, okay, that's the other thing. I am not the kind of seller that lets other people dictate how I run things. You might find, and I'm saying it because somebody recently asked me for one, a Tasmanian Devil coffee mug. And you might go on eBay and see that those, on average, sell for $12 to $15 a piece, right? Personally, if I see something sells for $15, I like to push the limit because I'm not selling to the standard buyer that goes to Walmart. I'm looking for that one insane fanatic who has to have everything Tasmanian Devil, right? So for me, I typically will say, oh, so these sell for an average of $15 each. I'm going to sell mine for $20. And 9 times out of 10, I will say this. If you're really, really good at how you build your eBay listings, it'll sell. It doesn't matter if you're $10 more, if you're $20 more, because, and I haven't figured out every nuance of how eBay does it, but you show up differently in searches than other people based on how you build your listing. So I've had situations where I've intentionally priced something at an astronomical amount, thinking nobody will ever find it, whatever, and it sold. I had I've had a CD recently where I listed it, and it was probably a CD that was very rare. They stopped producing it back in the 80s, I think, and it was sealed. So I listed it, and I was like, I'm just going to list it at $125 just to see what kind of attention it gets. I wish I had listed it at more because it sold in less than 8 hours. It was instant. I probably should have only listed it at maybe $60, $70. So I listed it for twice what I thought it would be worth, and it sold in 8 hours. So that said, I hear a lot of people say, oh, well, check your sold listing, check your sold listing. I check my sold listings, and then I add to it, because I typically know I'm going to put a lot of effort into the listing itself. So I say that to say this. When you're drop shipping, step number one is to figure out, you will hear most people say, figure out what other people are, what's most popular. So they'll say, go on Amazon and see what the top rated selling items are and then use those. Here's the downside to that. There are companies out there teaching people to drop ship, and they're teaching that same message. So if they're teaching Joe, go on Amazon and look at the top 10 rated selling items and then list those, and they're teaching Evan that, and they're teaching Bob that, well, there are 3 sellers right there all doing the exact same thing, which floods the market. So I don't typically look for it sold 500,000 times. I typically look for items that have a uniqueness to them. Maybe they're harder to find or something like that, right? So I did come across and I don't even know how to describe it. It was an auto part. I think it was part of the air conditioning unit that goes in a vehicle. And it was on Amazon. I think it cost $180 or something like that. I was selling mine for $299, I think. And I ended up selling, I think I sold 3 of those.
Wow.
So more than, not exactly more than double, but almost double what it was going for. And I made, now again, here's the catch. After researching it, after listing it, and I'll give you some suggestions on how to, on what I'm talking about when I say listing differently. But I had to pay out the $180 plus shipping. You do not want to drop ship with a Prime account. There is a very strict stipulation in the Amazon Prime policy that says if they feel like you're using your account for commercial use, they'll negate your contract, they won't refund it, and they won't let you sign back up. So be aware of that. So that means that you don't get your free shipping unless the seller gives it to everyone, right?
Yeah.
There's $180 plus, I don't know, $15 shipping plus tax in some states. Then you have your eBay fee, which is 10%, plus your PayPal fee, which is 3% plus 60 cents. So you're looking at, immediately 25 to 30% of your overall total, right? That $299 I have it listed for is already gone, plus the $180. That's a lot of money that's gone already. So I think I averaged, even having it at $300 and it being $180, I ended up only averaging like $80, maybe $120 profit, which is really, really good because I didn't really have much work to do. But if Amazon at any point in time changed their price on that item, it could have really, really hurt me.
Oh, yeah.
Because, on Amazon they have, here's the original price, they mark through it, and then below that they have the sale price. That item went for $429 originally. So what if that sale ended during my drop shipping and I didn't catch it? And I'm only selling it for $300. That means I'm out $129 extra plus shipping and taxes and all that. So you have to be monotonous and constant on your drop shipping store if you're going to do it.
Yeah, it sounds like you got to be watchful of everything.
Constantly. And a lot of sellers will actually have separate stores on eBay and on Amazon. They'll have a eBay dropship store and an Amazon dropship provider store. So that way they can keep everything separate.
What's the process of once somebody buys it, how do you put their address in? Because it ships from Amazon directly to the customer, right?
Usually, yeah. So I typically would only select Amazon hosted items. I wouldn't go in and do a lot of items that were sold by a third party, because 9 times out of 10, those are just, we've all had our eBay experience where we bought something from someone and it arrived and it was a hot mess compared to what it should have been.
Yeah.
So same situation. If Amazon touches an item, they inspect it. They've got a specific guideline or policy that the item has to sit within. So I typically would trust those a little bit more. And I don't think I ever had an issue or return. But the process is relatively simple if any of that does happen. When you go in to sell an item, there's just a section that says billing information, and then there's a box that you check that says, is your billing information and your shipping information identical? If not, click the button. And once you click that button, it opens up a second window for your shipping information. So you just do that. They'll give you a transaction ID number, like a shipping number. You copy and you put that into the address. I typically would do the person's name, then where it says first address, I would do their street, their second address, or vice versa. I would put the transaction number. And then I think that there's also a section for special instructions. So if I could not fit that number in the first or second address, I'd just drop it into the special instructions box.
Okay.
Especially if you're doing shipping a dropship item overseas, you have to have that strange code that they give you.
Yeah.
So putting that in the special instructions typically will take care of it.
What about like a receipt? Doesn't it say your name and the actual price you really paid for it, or how does that work?
Well, you can send it as a gift, which removes price and information. Then I typically, immediately after purchase, I would go in and I would select the contact seller option, and I would email them and say, hey, this is a gift, and it's going to someone across the country. Please remove. It's okay that if you put your name, you put the buyer's name in on their package, so that goes on the outside of the package on the shipping strip. Yeah. But on the inside, your receipt will typically have your information. I typically would just email the seller and say, please do not include a packing slip or remove price from packing slip, and that takes care of most of it.
Oh, okay.
I've never had. I did it for, I think, 6 months, and I never had any issue with the seller going, well, why did you buy this from Amazon, or anything crazy like that. A lot of it goes back into how you list your item. I always had a disclaimer at the bottom of my items that said something along the lines of, we ship from multiple warehouses throughout the United States, as well as from several providers who support us.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it covers it.
Yeah, being very political in how you verbalize your, almost telling them. I typically would sit down and think, anytime I list an item, I'm like, okay, what could they complain about? And then I add that into my disclaimer, the rebuttal.
Nice. Sounds like you figured it out.
Well, another thing that you'll typically hear a lot of people talk about, especially with dropshipping, again, because they're teaching 6 different people this same exact process, right?
Yeah.
They talk about it comes down to structure and keyword usage in your listing. So when you're creating a eBay listing name, you'd think I would know what it's called, but ultimately when you're listing your item, the first thing it asks is what is this item, and you type it in, and then it searches in the catalog for you to see where it's going to add it.
Yeah.
If you're selling a trash can, go in and type a 30-gallon trash can. But then when you get into actually listing the item after you've found in the catalog and you've clicked all your categorization, once you've selected all that, go in and delete your title and redo it. It's encouraged that you use every single one of the, I want to say it's 80 or 200 characters. Use all of them. And it doesn't have to be, like, for example, you might be selling one of those 30-gallon plastic trash cans, but the title, and eBay will never penalize, I say this, and watch me get my hand slapped for it, eBay does not penalize a seller for their title. Meaning, if I go in and I put 30-gallon plastic trash can, metal, tin, outdoor, whatever, it might be an indoor trash can and it might be plastic, not metal, but those keywords can still go in there because that's what the title is for. It's when you run an eBay search, just a generic eBay search, it searches title before it does description. In fact, there's actually a button that a seller has or a buyer has to click in order for the description to be included in the search function.
Oh, wow.
So that said, when you're listing your items, use as many of those characters as you can. Use as many diverse words. I typically would suggest give yourself, 5 words that are very specific to the item you have, and then ask your self what 3 words would someone search for similar to this. So, for example, someone might type in metal trash can. Mine typically would not show up if I just put 30-gallon outdoor plastic trash can.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, I want them to see it even if they're looking for metal, so I might type metal into my title. And then I also want them to look for it, maybe a landscaper or somebody raking up leaves, so I might put yard work or landscape or something. I'm putting in keywords that
will draw other people.
Yeah, may not directly pertain to the item, but are drawing attention from people who are looking for other things.
I guess I want to start trying that.
Do what?
Not to try that on some of my listings.
Yeah, I mean, you might be looking to buy a bicycle bell, right? And I'm going to put on there bicycle, tricycle, and then I'm going to toss in there tire, because somebody might be going and looking for a bicycle inflator, but I want my bicycle bell to show up when they're looking, so I type in tire or spoke or inflator or whatever, so that when they type in bicycle inflator, my stuff shows up within that stuff. It's still relevant to what's being searched for. It's just not the exact item that they intended to find.
I got a story that kind of plays along with that. For a while, I was selling a lot of Skechers. I was selling a bunch of women's shoes, man. Just Skechers here, left and right. Then one day I noticed, I was like, hey, that's spelled wrong. I spell all my Skechers shoes with a T, and there's no T in the word Skechers. Everybody kind of I think I just kind of overlooked it. I'm spelling it and I wrote it out wrong. So I corrected the spelling, and my sales just like dropped off, man. They dropped off bad. Hold on a second.
I've had that happen too, where just a typical misspell could make all the difference. Some people don't know how to spell, or traditionally, society's accepted a new way of spelling something or saying something. So using, I guess you'd call it slang, the slang concepts can help as well.
Yeah, it's crazy. So actually now I put both words in there. I spelled Skechers and regular Skechers in there. So.
Yeah, I've done that too. It definitely helps. When you're listing, keywords are everything. If you can maximize that title, and I'll say this: if you have an item that you've had on the shelf for a long time, and you're listing it 30 day, and it's still there three months in, change a couple of the keywords. I'm talking every time you go to relist an item, there are two things I suggest to people on eBay. Don't just click relist, because that actually affects, I've been told, that affects where you show up in the list, right, in the searches.
Oh, wow.
Instead, click sell similar, and when the sell similar screen pops up, just go and change, even if you just change one or two keywords in each of your listings, you're likely to see a difference.
Oh, okay. I have to try that next time. Yeah, that's a good tip. I'll have to do that. That sounds good.
Cool.
So are you planning to open a store with like an actual physical store with all your stuff, or are you just going to keep selling them online and Facebook and Craigslist? Is that the plan, or what?
Well, the immediate goal is, for right now I do mostly Facebook. I have my own page. It's called Retreasures Thrift Boutique. The easiest way to get there is just www.retreasuresboutique.com. That's what I do right now. Again, because I'm working a full corporate shift, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And then I do a couple of side things for my other streams of income. So right now, I think I have 5 different streams of income, and I'm trying to eliminate the need for my day job so that I can focus on those other 4. So I do Facebook now. I typically post stuff in my Facebook page first, and I let it sit for anywhere between 24 hours and a week. Then I'll start moving it out into other groups locally, and I'll let that sit for a day or so. And then if I still have the item, which I usually don't, then I'll move it to Craigslist. And then past that, depending on the stature of the item, like again, if it's an Elvis thing, I'm probably more likely to put it on eBay than anything. So if I've got it past that, then I put it on eBay. My long-term goal would be to move into, my goal is this year to learn Amazon FBA. I don't have a lot to send to them right now because, again, a lot of the stuff that you get out of a storage auction is used or very unique or whatnot, so I'm not typically coming across items that one would typically see on FBA, but that's my goal, is to learn that this year. And then within the next probably year to year and a half, I want to open up a commercial location. I'm probably going to do flea markets and farmers markets and stuff for the next year first to kind of get myself prepared for that.
Yeah. Have you ever, on Facebook, had anybody who lives far away where you had to mail them a product or mail them something you were selling, or has that always been just local pickup only?
I've had one situation so far where someone in Atlanta wanted to purchase something, and again, I'm in Nashville, so that's 6 hours or so, and I was not going to drive it for one item. So I told them, I said, hey, I'm happy to send this to you. I appreciate that you just cover, depending on the item or whatnot. If it's a really expensive item, if it comes up again, I might help with the shipping. It depends. For example, I've got right now one of my favorite items in my store is this really neat, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like somebody took blood and oil and poured it all over this chair. It's really, really pretty, red and black. And if somebody wanted to buy that and I had to ship it to them, they'd have to cover the shipping because I'd probably have to ship it freight. But if somebody buys a magazine or, you know, a calendar or something like that, then I'll typically either split the cost with them or just, you know, I'll send them a message and say, hey, the item's $10. Do you mind covering the $3 shipping? And if they seem at all hesitant, I might toss it in as a gift. You know, just say, thanks so much for your purchase. By the way, I covered shipping for you.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Yeah, because, again, at the end of the day, if I can get them talking about me on their Facebook page, or if I can get them to come back to the store again, that $3 will make itself up.
All right. Well, thank you for being on the show today. And again, I want you to mention like all your the ways that people can contact you and get a hold of you and check out your store.
Yeah. So you can find my Facebook store www.retreasuresboutique.com, or look me up on Facebook, Retreasures Thrift Boutique, in the search bar. And my email is phoenixrisingops@outlook.com if you need to email me with any questions or need any help finding me.
All right, Evan. Well, you have a great day.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me on.